When it comes to fish food, there are a lot of different choices. Not only are there lots of different brands, but there's lots of different types and lots of different applications. Today I'm going to go through the most popular types of fish foods, some that are a little bit less popular, talk about each of them individually, and rank them from 1 to 10. Hey fish friends, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks. Now I just got done with a nice big Thanksgiving dinner, so I thought it would be fun to talk about fish food and all the different types. Now I know that it can be, for some people, if you're new to aquariums or whatever, it can be a little bit daunting when you're looking at the aisles at the pet store or the fish store, looking at all the different food choices. It can be hard to choose a fish food. Not only are there lots of different brands out there, but there are also lots of different types of food, and they all have different applications. So today, I'm gonna do my best to quickly go through all the different types of fish foods that you would encounter, and also rank them from my top choice, or I think what would be the premium, to kind of not my top choice. Not that they're bad, but just not the one that I would reach for in the first place. Now I'm not going to talk about any brands as far as like what brand you should choose and what brand you shouldn't choose. I don't think that this is the right forum for that. Full disclosure, I am sponsored by Extreme Aquatic Foods, so they are a very high quality premium fish food. And if you stay till the end, there is going to be a giveaway. So make sure that you watch until the end to learn about the details of the giveaway, which will be worldwide. So no matter where you live, someone is going to get a prize. But I'm gonna stay away from brands and not get into what I think you should or shouldn't buy, but more so the different types of food. Now we're gonna rank them from 1 to 10, 1 being the best, like this is the top of the line, and if you can afford to get it or if it's available to you, I would recommend it, and then down to, you know, if you come across it and it works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, then probably just pass. Now, when it comes to premium fish foods, in my opinion, that is going to be a live fish food for most fish. So that's going to be things like live insects, live baby brine shrimp, live worms. And if you have the ability to house those and keep some, those are going to really give you the best results. Those are going to allow you to really see our fish behave at a kind of a higher level, and also it could help in spawning activity, etc. I don't have any laid out here because they're alive and they would be moving around on the table and I'd have to catch it and it's messy. But in here I've got a bunch of white worms. This is just a white worm culture. And basically these are kind of very small worms that I can feed to some of my freshwater puffers, my brackish water puffers, some of my smaller fish. They really like these as well. I do have baby brine shrimp, which I hatch quite often. I've made videos about this before. And of course, there's going to be B-roll for all of this. I have Daphne outside. So whatever it is that you choose for live foods, they are alive, and in most cases, they are the best option. Now, I will say with a caveat to that, that we're not talking about feeder fish, meaning going to one of the big box pet stores and buying a bag full of feeder goldfish as an example. I do not believe that those are a premium high quality fish for many reasons. One of those being that oftentimes those fish are riddled with diseases and infections, which you could pass on to your fish in your aquarium, parasites and things like that. So unless you have a situation where you're able to have like a giant quarantine tank and grow fish on your own and feed them to your fish, I would avoid that. But things like insects, worms, stuff like that, snails are really good for a lot of your fish. Okay, now that I put the creepy crawlies away and clean off my hands, we can continue on with the list. So the next one on my list, the number 2, is going to be a fresh food or a raw food. So this could be both for herbivores, omnivores, or piscivores. And this is going to be things like fresh vegetables. So if you're feeding your pleco like a piece of zucchini, or if you're feeding, you know, zucchini or spinach or kale or something to your mbuna or some of your other herbivore fish, things like that. Those are really going to benefit your aquarium fish. For those fish that you have that are like a piscivore, now these are expensive. You could do things like raw shrimp, raw scallops. You can go to the store and buy pieces of tilapia and cut that up and feed it to your fish as well. I made a video about this a while ago. I'll put a link of it up above or something like that. But those are obviously very high quality foods because those are foods that are available for us to eat. So you can go to the grocery store and buy those scallops, buy that shrimp, buy that kale, make yourself a spinach and kale salad with grilled prawns on it or something, and you can set aside a couple prawns, cut them up into little tiny pieces, and feed them to your cichlids, and you both have a good meal. So that is a very high quality food as well. Now the next food on my list, the number 3 type of food, is going to be a frozen food. And the reason why that I think that frozen foods are a very good food for many aquarium fish, or pretty much all aquarium fish, is because there's lots of different types of frozen foods available. So everything's available from something like something for herbivores like an emerald entree to full-on shrimp and bloodworms and stuff like that for some of your other fish that need a more meaty diet. So as an example, I love feeding bloodworms to like my puffers, as an example, to my mud skippers. It is a really good food for them to eat. It's going to offer close to the same amount of nutrients that a live food would offer, not quite as much as a live food, but you also don't have the hassle of having to keep live food alive, feed the live food, go through that whole process of hatching out live food or feeding them or taking care of their little habitat, whatever. You can just reach into the freezer, pop out a cube, defrost it, put it in some water, something like that, squirt it in the tank, and you're good to go. So frozen food's a really good option. The next on my list, the number 4 on my list, is a freeze-dried food. Now, freeze-dried food is going to be primarily for those fish that are piscivores or insectivores, fish that are going to be eating other animal matter, as an example. And you could do things like freeze-dried mealworms, freeze-dried crickets, things like freeze-dried shrimp, as an example. And these are good for a variety of fish. So whether it is a fish that usually will avoid things like pellet and flake food, but might eat frozen food, or obviously would eat live foods, you can try a freeze-dried food. So if you do have a picky eater, it is a very good food to choose. Now, it's not going to have that same quality as a live food, and it starts to degrade, as it goes through the process. But still, it does have a lot of the nutrients. It's very easy to keep because it's freeze-dried, so you just have a container of food on your shelf. You can open it up, pour some in your tank, and your fish will have, those little tasty morsels floating around. But a freeze-dried food is something that I use quite often and is a good option for many fish. Okay, so now we're going to get into some of the more common fish foods. The live foods, the raw foods, the frozen stuff. Some of that might be readily available. Obviously, the frozen stuff is available. But depending on where you live in the country or where you are in the world, some of these may not be available, or they may not make sense, or they might be just too expensive, which I understand. Now, with that being said, even though I rank those 1 through 4, there are still some really good foods that I feed my fish every day that are processed foods. So now we're going to get into the different types of processed foods. So number 5 on my list, which is actually my favorite type of processed food, is a quality flake food. So as an example, with a quality flake food, it's obviously, something that's in a package, it's readily available, it's shelf stable, so you don't have to grow it, freeze it, anything like that. You just, same thing, you reach up on your counter or your shelf and you open up the container, sprinkle some in your aquarium, and you're good to go. The reason why I like a flake food is it's very versatile. So if you get a quality flake food like this krill flake as an example, it is very versatile. So you could feed something like a medium to large cichlid, or you could crumble it up and feed like newly hatched fry that are very, very tiny. So you could actually grind up a flake food into like almost a powder consistency. So if you have like newly hatched fry from like a Central American cichlid and they're so tiny that you can barely see the fish, they can actually eat the powder from the flake food. So you can feed tiny fish, and you can feed even medium-sized fish a good flake food. So it's very versatile. There's lots of nutrients. The other good thing about it is most of them float very well. So it allows the fish to get to the food pretty quickly, where sometimes if you have foods that sink very fast, some fish may not be able to get to them because they like to occupy either the higher or mid part of the water versus the bottom. So a flake food is a very good option and one of my favorites. And for me, I think if I had to choose one food to fit everything, it would probably be something like this, a high quality flake food, because it is so versatile and I could do so much with it. The next food, which is kind of, in my opinion, like 5. So if I said this is 5, then this would be like 5B. But because we're going 1 through 10, I'll call this a 6. And that is a pellet food. Now, the pellet food is probably one of the most common fish foods, very versatile, and they come in a lot of different sizes. So even though I love this krill flake and I love the flake food, it would be really hard for me to give up the pellet food because it is really good in so many different applications. They come in different sizes, from giant pellets like this this one here that I can feed my Oscars or other large fish, to something really tiny that is good for, you know, much smaller fish as an example. So they come in different sizes. They're usually very dense as far as a nutrient level. So it's a, you know, food that's been processed and packed very tight. So not only is it, you know, an easy food to handle as far as the application, but it's nutrient dense. So it's a very good quality food that you can apply to many different types of fish. So a pellet food, great fish food. Lots of good brands out there. I happen to use Extreme, but it is highly ranked in my opinion as far as the processed foods. The next food on the list is going to be something like a granule or a crumble. Now, this is something that you may not see as often as a flake or a pellet, which is probably your two most common processed foods, but the granules can be very good in some applications. Now, the reason why it's not as high on my list and it's ranked at number 7 is because it's not a fish food that every fish or so many fish can go after. It's usually a situation where it's for smaller to tiny fish, and not so much like your medium-sized fish, etc. So as an example, like I have my nano crumble here from Extreme. It's a very good food, and I feed this to a lot of different fish. Again, but with crumbles, you're usually not getting that same size that's versatile for lots of different fish. It's not as versatile as a flake food, but it's still a really good quality food. So if you do have fish that need to have a dense food, but maybe the pellets just aren't small enough. So if you have like small tetras or things like that that really need, you know, a good quality food, but maybe or if you have like an auto feeder and you don't want to do a flake food in the auto feeder, and if the pellets don't work, then a crumble would be a good option. So the next one on my list is going to be a wafer, some type of sinking, flat type of fish food, kind of like the Extreme bottom wafers here. Now, the reason why this is ranked at number 8 and not higher is that it's a very specific food for a very specific type of fish. When you feed a wafer like this, you're really going towards those bottom-dwelling fish like a catfish or a pleco or something like that. That's really going to occupy that bottom level of the water column. Now, yes, you could do, you know, put something like this in an aquarium, and some of your other fish might eat it. So, like, you know, my mollies will still eat the wafer if I put it in the tank, but they're all kind of at the bottom, you know, just kind of going at it at the bottom. But really, this is designed for the bottom dwelling fish. So it's a very good food. It's very densely packed, just like a pellet would be. In fact, it might even be a little bit more dense because of the sinking nature of it. But it is a very specific application. So if you have a fish that is on the bottom, like a pleco, like a catfish, like certain Corridora, then this might be a good option for you. Number 9 on my list is kind of a category, like a little subcategory, and that's going to be other. So this would be things like certain fish foods that are designed to do a certain applications, like the O-nip tabs that you can stick to the glass and the fish will eat them from the glass, as an example. So it's just like a little pellet or a flat pellet, and you can stick it to the glass and the fish will nibble at it. So that would be kind of in that other category. And then there's other fish foods that are designed to mimic other foods. So example, like this food right here, you can't see it, but I'll show the B-roll. It's supposed to like mimic like a bloodworm as an example, but it is a processed fish food that's kind of dense in nature, kind of like a pellet or a wafer, but takes on a different shape. So some of these are really good. Some of these are kind of more novelty, and in certain applications that might make sense, like if you're trying to photograph a fish or get a bunch of fish to come to the front of the glass to show, you know, your nephew or niece or something like that. You can stick it on the front of the glass and they'll all come and swim and eat off the front glass there. But otherwise, it's kind of a specialty niche and not something that I would readily reach for unless there was some application where I knew that I needed it. So if you see them on a shelf, they're still good foods, but just know that these are kind of for specific applications, and they all vary as far as what they do. And the last one on the list at number 10 is going to be a stick food. Now, it's at number 10 not because it's a bad food, but just because 1 through 9 are better options in my opinion, and I haven't found an application that really makes sense for me to use this fish food in this fish room with my fish tanks. But a floating stick in some applications makes sense. Maybe you have certain fish that like to, you know, eat from the surface and they need to have something larger. So this might make sense for certain predatory fish, piscivores, large cichlids, koi fish, etc. Maybe it makes sense in those applications. For me, my preference is that I like to use other types of foods like a pellet or a fresh or frozen food, just because I feel like I can still deliver the quality of nutrients and in a form factor that makes more sense to me. But this is still a decent food for a lot of different people. If you made it this far, I want to thank you because you're probably here for the giveaway, or maybe you found this video interesting. Hopefully that I was able to help give you some guidance as far as different foods and different applications and what to look for if you're new to fish keeping or if you're looking at trying some different foods and different options for your aquarium fish. So with that being said, I am going to be doing a giveaway. So what I want to do is I want to give away some fish food to one of you, or two of you actually, out there watching this video. And it doesn't matter where you live. You can be anywhere in the world that I can ship to. If your country or your state, obviously your state will receive it. If you live somewhere where I can ship something to you, then you will get one of these free of charge in the mail. So first thing is I'm going to give away probably my favorite fish food in the whole world as far as a processed fish food, and that is the extreme krill flake. So I've made videos about this before. I'll put a link up there. It is by far my favorite processed fish food. If I picked one brand, one type of food, this is the one. So one of you guys out there, guys or girls out there, will get this container right here, sealed, brand new, never opened. And someone else will also get this. This is quite a large one too. It's 11.3 ounces, 320 grams, a large container of brand new cichlid sticks. I did open them. I took out 5 or 6 sticks for this video. Other than that, it's a brand new package, but I will be sending this out to one of you as well. So all you have to do to win is subscribe to this channel. Hopefully you are by now. If you have not done so, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button over there somewhere and hit the like button. And then down in the comments, just comment that you are interested in the fish food and tell me which one. Tell me that you want the stick or the krill flake, and tell me where you're from. You can say, I want the sticks and I'm from Ireland, or I want the extreme krill flake and I'm from Pennsylvania. Just write down where you're from, which one you want, hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll randomly pick a couple winners in the next few days. Quick little bonus. Besides those other 2 fish foods which I'm going to give away, we'll do a third one, and that is going to be the bottom wafer. So if anybody wants this amazing container of the extreme bottom wafers, which is good for plecos, corridora, bottom feeding catfish, etc., then comment down below just like the other ones, and I'll throw this one in as well. That's all I had for now. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.